Meeting of the Board of Trustees, August 7th to order. Call the roll, please.
President Gutierrez.
Here.
Trustee Burdine.
Here.
Trustee Hickey. Here. Trustee McLennan.
Here.
Trustee Toledo.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Sallee.
Here.
Manager Yule.
Here.
I'll stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the approval of the agenda. There was a change under petitions and communications. B will now become DDA update, and C will be citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Are there any other additions or changes to the agenda? If not, I entertain a motion to accept it as amended.
I move to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the workshop of July 17th and the regular meeting of July 17th. There is an amendment to the recycle bins. It should read 2 recycle bins at $296 each. For the National Honor Society, including shipping, will be $341.48 each. Are there any other comments or changes to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the amended minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
Moved and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have petitions and communications. Chief Tim Garbo.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize one of our officers here with the Dundee Police Department. Outstanding job and service that he did. Earlier this year, we had a B&E to Dundee Castings. During that time, this officer was dispatched out to Dundee Castings. He took it upon himself to do the legwork and to take the extra steps. It's what I always encourage all the officers to do. This officer comes to us with great experience, but he did take the extra steps. In doing so, he was able to not only solve the B&E, but he was able to get all the items that were stolen from the B&E returned to us. It was actually a 10-day span that the items were taken from Dundee Castings. Officer Mandel took it upon himself to not only go out and speak to and do interviews here in Dundee, but it extended into the city of Adrian, to the county of Lenawee, and also into the county of Jackson. So his hard work over 10 days of investigation led to the apprehension of 3 subjects. And during that time, he was also able to retrieve, I believe, everything that was stolen except for 1 article. And that 1 article was a computer that we were unable to retrieve. But I just wanted to recognize him to you guys, to the city, to the village of Dundee, and to the citizens of Dundee. So if I could have Officer Don Mandel step forward at this time. If I could, I'd like to read the certificate of commendation. It's awarded to Officer Donald Mandel in grateful recognition of outstanding service rendered to the police department and the citizens of the village of Dundee on this 7th day of August 2018. Your hard work and dedication in the apprehension and indictment of one Jeffrey Bennett, Angel Serrato, and Melissa Valentine. Thank you for your hard work and service. If you don't mind, could you come down here? We'll just invite her down to represent you. Yes, we're going to go over here.
I didn't know it.
Get this off.
One, two, three.
Good job. Okay, next we have the DDA update. Say it loud.
Hey, here to update you on what the DDA is up to and what's happening. I want to bring you up to date. We have Rockin' on the Raisin the 18th of August, so spread that to your friends and everyone around. It'll be in the parking lot here by the river. So from now on, I'm going to call that Rockin' on the Raisin parking lot, because we're hoping that that event will take off and we'll be able to have those there at least once a month in our downtown, as people can participate and have some fun in our own downtown. Something else that's come to the light of the DDA is that John Harnica gave up the largest pumpkin layoff, and as a DDA, we voted to take that on as a event for October 6th. I've done a lot of legwork, but so has some of our board members, and we have secured that for this year. It took a few minutes, but we did get that done. We'd like to have a pumpkin layoff right here in the downtown, so we get to see all those huge pumpkins. There's 30 to 40, sometimes as many as 50 of them weighed. They go from 500 to maybe 2,000 pounds. So it's kind of cool. There's squashes, there's pumpkins, there's watermelons, tomatoes. So everybody gets to see some of the huge stuff right here in Dundee in downtown. So we named it Pumpkin Palooza for this event. And we're pretty excited about it. We want some kids events involved where they can carve pumpkins. We're talking about down the road maybe having smashing pumpkins or something like that, where we could have a bigger area where we can have some cool stuff for things to do. And then adding from there to that and create it as a fall event for our downtown. So we can have something like apple and chicken to come see. We could have pumpkin and then we have apple down there. We've invited some apple people to come. And any vendors from the downtown that would like to participate and put stands out or anything like that are more than welcome. And we'll go from there. I believe we've outreached to the old mill already and told them that they can sell their pumpkin rolls and pumpkin pie at that event. There's no cards cost and kind of include everybody in that deal. We are looking for some sponsorships to help cover the cost of the prizes for the largest pumpkin. And we did some investigation. It runs from $1,000 for the biggest, and then the prizes come down. In California, where they had this huge event, they were paying $7 a pound. Well, that's a pretty good deal for raising a $2,000 pumpkin. So I hope someday we get that event, that size of a prize, because that'll bring a lot more people on that. So we're excited with that. My ask on that is if we could have the council pass a resolution or pass an amendment that we can use the parking lot where the Rockin' on the Raisin is for October 6th. Probably by 4 o'clock we'll have that all wrapped up and done. So that's my only ask there. Any questions?
So that's where you're mainly planning on doing it in the
Yeah,
parking lot?
because if we try to do it up in the triangle with 40 to 50 of them and trying to get around with equipment and weigh them and all that, we don't think we're going to have enough room. So if you can imagine 40 pallets laid out in the parking lot with big pumpkins on them, and then you got 10 or 12 or 14 other things there, then you're going to have a lot of room to go. So it'd be cool if somehow we could get it so we could put it in downtown. Maybe that's the deal that we buy the pumpkin or somebody sponsors the buying of the largest pumpkin so we can display it for Halloween or whatever. That'd be cool. And we also talked about having a Halloween dress-up contest and all that, but that's all just stuff we're trying to add into the event and stuff so that our kids can get involved with what's going on. And adults, too.
And on the request for the parking lot, Lyle touched base with the chief, and that's pretty much the only safe way to do it, lining up that many vehicles and trucks and trailers. Yes.
And then,
They can come in the alley and go right back out.
yeah, and then our goal is to ask the school, we haven't got there yet because we just got all this done, if we could use their parking lot to park the trailers and stuff for that day, which I didn't think would be a big deal, but we'll go with that for that, and that's kind of what we had in mind.
They'll have a brand new parking lot by then.
So,
Okay, so the council will have to come up with this resolution for the next meeting, since we're not
That's fine.
prepared for it.
That'd be fine.
Anything else?
Nope, not this time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Is there anything from the citizens tonight? No? Okay, is there a motion to accept the petitions and communications?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and supported, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda? None. Old business? Spicer Group, updated presentation for the Ypsilanti Street closure and the final design services.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we had the workshop last month, and I took the comments that were made there, and I talked to Dave about the next phase of the project. We decided that we would I would come up with a conceptual site plan. We do the project in phases to keep it more within budget. So we'll start with a conceptual site plan of each phase, and that will include a cost estimate of each phase, and that will incorporate what the village will be doing in-house, so that will be no charge. And then we'll keep it to the budget that is approved. So we'll get, in the first phase, we can probably do sidewalk, the curb with the parking on Main Street, and just grass in the area of Ypsilanti Street. And then the second phase will add the picnic tables, the chargers, stations, and maybe the flower pots. So we would start with that, and then we would get those approved from the board before we move on, so we're not wasting time on real detailed plans. And then once the board approves the conceptual plans, then we'll move into more detailed plans with maintaining traffic plans, where an MDOT permit is going to be needed, so they need a lot of detail of what is going to be happening in there right away. And if there's going to be lane closures, which there probably will be, how that's going to happen, and all the traffic signing and stuff like that. There's going to be a sedimentation control permit needed from the county, since you're so close to the river here. So that means I have a plan sheet with detailed information on it. The permanent signing, that's going to be there after the road is closed. And we can even add the staggered stop bars. We can talk to MDOT about that if you want to go forth with that. All the sidewalk ramps will be ADA compliant, and so that has some detailed grading that needs to be included in that. And the storm water will be managed with storm sewers, so to make sure it all flows off of there, there's no ponding in the new park. So with all that, the fee would be $7,000
For all of those designs.
for all of those.
I would just like to say one thing. I would like the pots to be included in the first phase, because I think that those things that are there now are atrocious, and we need to get rid of those. And no matter what happens, we can use those pots somewhere. If something happens and they have to be moved around.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Because it's really an eyesore with those.
And we want to use those two, Penny, we talked about over where we tore the building down, to keep people from
Right,
driving
right,
up on the sidewalk.
right.
We're going to use decorated pots there with flowers.
Maybe we should find out if somebody disagrees with that, actually. If anybody's against it.
That would just be my request. Also, I just want to note that the $170,000 that came out the last meeting, I think was taken a little bit out of context, because I don't think it was our intention to put that much money into that place. That was kind of
That was the Cadillac version.
that was the Cadillac version, and not counting the village doing work and doing it in phases and that type of thing. So I don't want the community to think that the village is, being fiscally irresponsible and going out and putting $170,000 in that area over there. I just want to clarify that.
And at the end of the day, I think that when it's all said and done, we can actually figure out what we actually did spend and pay against that $170,000 to show what we've saved by doing things.
Well, we have Cadillac eyes, but we definitely have beer wallets.
Well, I think that was her job, though, to give us that version, so that's appreciated. I'm not pointing the finger at you, I just want to clarify that.
I know that there were some concerns about that piece that was coming out to the road and how maybe that part wasn't a good idea. So the new plan will not include that kind of bumped out piece. Sure, or,
It can, I wasn't
well, I
aware
thought
of
we
that.
didn't want that, so that's what I'm asking. Is it going to not include that piece? Because there was that section that came out for the parking spaces. So the revised design will not have that, correct? It's not going to come out to the road at all.
I think that's what we talked about the last meeting, that they didn't want that to bump out there.
Okay.
If that's feasible, too.
Yeah, it is, we could still put parking there, it would just be with striping.
And I think the council was all in agreement on the additional parking. So
Yeah.
if we can do that without the bump out, it would be great.
I mean, we still have to have a proposed final plan, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're not just gonna go do it, right?
Right, but I think it's just good to give her some kind of direction of what we're looking for before she has to reinvent the wheel.
Is there anything else that you need to know from us before you can do that?
I don't think so. And if I do come up with any other questions, that'll be within the conceptual rendition. And I'll talk to Dave.
And I'll keep you guys updated, emails.
Okay, so I guess we would need a motion to approve $7,000 for the conceptual phase design from Spicer Group.
I'll make that motion to approve $7,000 to get the conceptual design drawn up.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and supported, is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say that the road closing, it was done in the wrong way. We should have, all of us agreed that we would have 6 months of that one-way street, and we never even tried it. It's like having a ball team without tryouts. And I'm having a hard time with this because it's not fair. The safety aspect would have been fair one way, it possibly would have worked, but we didn't give it a chance. We said we would, and then there was politics going on. I guess politics is hell.
I don't think it was politics, Tim. I think that what happened was all of us sitting up here as council people, we are not professional people when it comes to traffic flow, when it comes to safety and that type of thing. That's why I think we sought the professional advice of SEMCOG and traffic engineers that do know this, that do this every day, and that's their profession. When they came back and said, absolutely not, that would be a nightmare, it would be unsafe, they told us what could possibly potentially happen. Personally, I could not, in good conscience, recommend that, knowing that someone could get hit upon the advice of someone who knows what they're talking about. So I disagree with you that it was politics. I think we tried to make an educated decision.
Honestly, it was a simple matter of, we looked at two different ideas. We had that idea to begin with, and we changed our minds, but that's what a council's all about. You're supposed to flow with what you have going on and pick the better of two ways. And, I'm sorry, Tim, but everybody agrees with that except you, so that should tell you something.
It does. I just agree to disagree.
Okay.
I understand,
And I respect
but
that.
I mean, just respect the fact that it's not like everybody doesn't want to do it, it's that we all agree on the other way, it's better that way, that's all.
And I went along with everybody of closing it temporarily, and then when it come time for the one way, we all went that way, and I went along with going after Halloween and everything, and then we changed again. And
we wouldn't be here discussing this now because we'd know if it worked temporarily closing or one way. We never give it a shot.
Because we
That's
made
what,
that
that's
change
what
based
really.
upon a professional
Yeah, we
recommendation.
got
Guys, can we have
recommendations.
a point of order that what's being discussed on the floor is the design? The closure is not what's being discussed right now. So I would like to come to order, please.
Okay, call the roll.
It was moved by trustee Salee and supported by trustee McClendon to approve Spicer Group's conceptual design at a cost not to exceed $70,000 for Ypsilanti Street closure. $7,000, excuse me, for Ypsilanti Street closure. Trustee Hickey?
Yes.
Trustee McClendon?
Yes.
Trustee Polito?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Salee?
Yes.
Trustee Bernine?
No,
President Gutierrez?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tracy.
Next, we have budget adjustments from Spicer. Is this the outer drive project?
Oh, Nick will talk about that.
Okay, you're up.
Good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for having us here. What we're here to request from the village are a number of budget adjustments for various projects. Some projects we've had for a while and they're ongoing, we've used the budget and we need some more. Other projects are ones that were completed, but there was a budget for them at the time. But rather than go through a whole process of going to get the budget and everything else, some of the things were time sensitive, so we needed them quick. So we're asking for a number of line item budgets. One for some sewer line on M50 for inspection that was done on that job. It went a little bit over where we thought it was going to be. Dundee road maintenance, we've got some stuff where we've provided some support on various projects. And even now, we're working on some estimates for that. So for that one, there's been some work already completed. And then we also added an amount to that budget so that we can continue to provide the support the village staff asked for when they add it. For instance, right now, I think we're doing estimates on 6 or 8 streets for Nick that are basically, you know, him having to take a look at those for future budgeting. So we're doing a bunch of work there. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing under that. Is we don't know what they are. The village staff just comes to us and says, hey, can you give us an estimate? Or can you help us with this? Or can you look at this, like on Outer Drive? Hey, we've got some questions on this sewer. How do we fix this? We come out and provide support. So that covers some old time as well as some future time that for whatever else they might ask for. The Dundee miscellaneous site inspections is the same thing. That's whenever Dave asks for support on a plan review for whatever project may come in, or when they did the building out here, when they tore the building down and they had to rehab that wall that was there to make it stable. That's just us providing support for that. And we like to do that on a quick basis. So that it has some additional budget built into it for going forward for whatever the village might need. The sign ordinance is one that Dave asked us for some information on some signs, on changeable message signs, so we had to do that pretty quickly because they had one in the hopper for Great Lakes Brewing. They were looking at their changeable message signs, so we did some ordinance research and looked for some things and then recommended some changes to allow signs of that type within the village. And then the Dundee Ridge easement, they needed an easement really quickly for some utilities that were going to go between 2 existing homes out there. There was supposed to be an easement there initially, but there never was. So we had to provide one for the homeowners so they could legally install utilities between there. So those are the kind of things that we come up with from time to time. And a lot of times, again, we're moving quickly to kind of meet the needs of the village on that kind of work.
I do have a question. So is this kind of like a retainer situation?
A little bit, but it's not, we only charge when you need us. So there's not like a monthly fee or anything associated with that. It's if Nick calls and says, hey, can you come look at this parking lot with me? Then if we go out there for an hour and we look at it and we do an estimate, we just charge for the time that's billed.
But some of that's already built into this. This is not
Yeah.
already completed work.
No, right, there's budget here for future things like that, so we don't have to keep coming back. I think we haven't been back for a year and a half on a lot of these, so it's been a while. since we've been back. So we try to get that budget, that way we don't have to every time, we have a $250 bill for a little bit of support, we don't have to come back.
Well, and we can know what we're dealing with too.
Correct.
So I guess what we need is a motion to accept the budget adjustments in the amounts as listed, not to exceed $39,000 for Spicer Group.
I move that we accept the budget adjustments listed, not to exceed $39,000.
There's support.
Support.
And then I have discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
So my concern is that, I understand Nick needs help, every now and again with what he's doing. I just want to make sure, Dave, are you keeping an eye on, like, is it okay with you when he does this, or does he just do it? I mean, how does that work?
Nick always comes to me first.
Comes to you first.
Says we're working on this, we need to get a hold of who we voted to be our consultant.
Okay.
And
No, I don't mean anything negative, but
No,
I
I
just want
know.
to make sure that
No.
somebody's
Yes.
keeping an eye on everything.
And usually I go out,
Check counter check.
usually I go out with him too.
Okay, all right,
So,
that's all I need to do.
Mike, also keep in mind, this is also covering zoning stuff, ordinance stuff, and building stuff. So
Right.
I'm only a small piece of this.
I'm just more interested in, like, we've got people watching each other's
And to
backs.
protect you too, Nick.
I rarely call Spicer on my own. I go to Dave and say, we need to call Spicer, and Dave gets a hold of him, which is why most of the things that you see that Spicer brings, it's through Dave, because I don't do those.
And Gary does the same thing. He's
Yeah.
talking about the digital sign. Gary came to me and said, ooh, I got this permit. We don't have anything on digital signs. I picked up the phone and called him.
So I just have two comments. It's my understanding that some communities have more than one engineering consult that they use. So they have, because different engineers are good at different things. So they might have two places that they kind of keep on retainer, for lack of a better word. So my comment and also question is, have we considered doing that, considering we have more than one partnership with different engineering places? I mean, we do have David Arthur consultants in town. We also have done work with Yannick and Smith. Would it behoove us to maybe have a couple of engineers in our pocket in case maybe Spicer Group is busy that day, or maybe it's not their forte? I mean, maybe that's not what they're good at. And then my other comment and sort of question is, are we going to put a time frame on this? Is this just for one budget year? Are we coming back next year? Or are we going to say that this is the budget for their services to max out after 3 years? Because I don't like contracts that go on forever. Because I feel that there should be an opportunity for both sides. Maybe you don't like working with us anymore, and maybe you want out. I know that's not what you're saying up here, but I think that, not that I want to get rid of you by any means, because I think you guys have done a lot of good in this community. But I think to protect all parties, that might be something that we have to do our due diligence on, because maybe for all we know, the whole office is going to be turned over in 3 years. I like working with you guys, but maybe someone who replaces you, we won't. So where's our protection to?
This budget year.
Yes.
I mean, that's usually, we do budget adjustments usually for the current
Yes.
budget year.
There's no time frame in there. So as far as I know, we don't have an official contract that has an exact date when it expires.
Yeah, I don't know about the, I can't answer to the contract, but a budget adjustment is for the current budget year. But,
And on the other, we do, like with, Rob and I are meeting with Tetra Tech in regards to the wastewater treatment plant, to do some consulting with them. And also we use Manick and Smith for that too, because they run the plant. But Tetra Tech is putting a new plant together. So we use them for that and do not go to Spicer for our wastewater treatment plant. So we kind of already do those things.
It would be nice though if we did have something that was official, because I think that it looks more transparent to the community when you put something out there saying what our relationships are.
And keep in mind with that, even if they're open-ended budgets that go on beyond, you guys are in control of when those services are provided. We don't bill unless you ask us to do something. So if you don't need us, we don't bill anything, and you don't incur any cost.
And in the new budget year, we'll be soliciting for bids again for services, for VR consulting. We'll ask for requests for qualifications.
And I will point out, I do have a math error in these two, with the total budget, it should be 45. The original budget for the sign ordinance and the Dundee Ridge, there was no original budget, so it's actually in the wrong column. Those two columns for those numbers should be switched. So it should be 7,000, 25,000, 25,000, 2,000, 4,000, for a total adjustment of 45.
Dave, what did Robin say regarding this number?
She was okay with them, but we did not know of the number switch. So I will fill her in on that tomorrow.
So that makes the motion incorrect as well. The motion was for 39,000 max, it's 45,000 right off top of that. So I'll keep my motion going. If you can make that change, Shirley, and then it needs to be
Yes, we're going to
supported.
change.
45,000 and change.
Who supported that?
I'll re-support.
Oh,
I'll support the amendment.
Is there any other discussion?
No, but I like her idea of, we should definitely do something about, just like she said, to have them in our pocket, That's all I have to say.
Ready? Call the roll, please. Oh, okay.
Was moved by trustee Saliba, supported by trustee Scott, to approve Spicer Roof project budget adjustment in the amount as listed, $45,000, not to exceed $45,000. Trustee McClendon,
Yes.
trustee Polito,
Yes.
trustee Scott,
Yes.
trustee Saliba,
Yes.
trustee Burdine,
Yes.
trustee Hickey,
Yes.
president Gutierrez.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.